Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience Live. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Don Baker.
Hey.
It is March 3rd, 2013. How the hell are you?
I'm doing great. Good to be here.
It's been a while since I think the
Yeah.
last time we were supposed to do this together, I called in sick. Somebody
Yeah,
substituted.
you had something. I hope
There's
you're better.
always something going on.
Okay.
Speaking of stuff going on, this Thursday there's a Planned Parenthood rally down at the Capitol. Just
Cool.
passing out news in case anybody was interested. And at the end of the month, over Easter weekend, which is also, there's a more important holiday on Easter weekend. Easter's March 31st, and that's my birthday.
Oh,
and
I thought it was
so
equinox.
because of my birthday, the American Atheist Organization has decided to have their 50th anniversary convention here in Austin for my birthday. Isn't that awesome?
Oh, that's wonderful.
I'm pretty sure that there's a little bit of coincidence thing going on there, but yeah, they've actually started putting up billboards. The press release
here in Austin?
Yeah, the press
Oh,
release is out today. Beth and I actually saw one of the billboards in Austin. I don't know for sure how many there are. Yesterday at 183, just north of Lamar. It's on the southbound side, so if you're headed north, it'll be on your left, and you can see it. That one's actually got Rick Santorum, and then some crazy anti-gay or anti-secular statement with an announcement about the convention that's coming up.
Cool.
And there's several more. I think there's 5 or 6 different billboards that are up in Dallas and Austin. They feature Rick Santorum, Newt Gingrich, Sarah Palin, the Pope, and I don't know, maybe Jesus or something.
No Michelle Bachmann?
No. And no Rick Perry and no other stuff, but they're good little billboards to get the word out about the convention.
Stir up some.
But I don't want to just sit here and do news because I know you've got something to get to before we take calls.
Yeah,
You're
I got
continuing on to explain to us just how messed up Christianity is.
That's right. That's right. I've been doing a long series on the failures of Christianity, and this will be show 13, episode 13 of the failures of Christianity, and I'm still just scratching the surface. Still got a lot more to go. Today's topic is God's absolute morality. And so the question here is, if you got God on your side, how can you be failing quite so often? And the answer is there is no God, I guess. So God's absolute morality. Well, Christians claim that their God is the author of morality. They often use the capital A in author, and that God's moral laws are absolute. But, and that secular morality is inherently relativistic and ungrounded. So these are some of the claims you hear. But today I'll show that secular morality is clearly superior, and that God's absolute morality is outdated and clearly an outdated human invention. And much of it is in service of religious leaders' agendas. So whenever you hear God's absolute morality, watch for a hidden agenda and you'll find it. So, and much of God's absolute morality as it appears in the Bible is either ridiculous or reprehensible. Some of it's obvious and some of it's something that they run away from. So there's all sorts of different categories. So once again, God's absolute morality is yet another failure. So let's talk about the nature of God's absolute morality. It's supposedly divine command. We have God giving his commands from on high and telling people what to do. And it's really sort of a case of do as I say, not as I do, because God violates a lot of his own morality. And there's kind of an idea here that might makes right. He's powerful. He gets to do what the heck he wants. And it takes the form of a list of rules, often thou shalt nots. And we know from modern psychology that rules-based moral systems are necessarily incomplete and rigid. They necessarily can't be adapted to the circumstances. They necessarily can't list every possible situation that might come up. And in many cases, they contain contradictions, such as murder is bad. God says that murder is bad, but he also says killing your slaves are just fine under some circumstances. So that's a contradiction. And then these sort of primitive morality systems, these rules-based morality systems, appeal to a primitive state of moral development where your children that go through this growing up, where you're trying to deal with how can I avoid being punished because being punished is no good, or what's in it for me, and it appeals to kind of the childhood mind, and there's kind of based on this idea of blind obedience. God's absolute morality is also unchanging, right? God is perfect. He laid it down, and it shouldn't be changing because he supposedly got it right the first time. If he didn't get it right, then there's something wrong, right? So it therefore cannot be adapted to the time or situation. Well, secular morality is better, clearly, because it's based on reason, learning, compassion, responsibility, mitigating harm, these sorts of things, and they're often codified in our laws, and it applies to everyone. Not even if God were human, it would apply to him too. It can be adapted to the times and situation, and it improves as we learn more and grow. So the nature of harm becomes broader because we understand the consequences of our actions might go and affect more people. It becomes more nuanced as we learn more, and the consequences of our actions are better understood. So it improves. So it's definitely a better thing. It's an evolving thing, and it's based in human nature and our collective knowledge, and not the whim of some being, fictional or otherwise. So the content of God's absolute morality is a bunch of laws given in the Bible, supposedly dictated by him. It includes things like the Ten Commandments, but it also includes a lot of the actions and dictates of the God in the Bible, and other characters in the Bible tend to get rolled up into the morality too, so anything in the Bible kind of becomes sometimes fair game. So it includes things like thou shalt not murder from Exodus 20:13. It includes things like thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, Exodus 22:18. And it includes things like God shall not see the kid goat in its mother's milk, Exodus 23:19. So we can see a lot of variation in the quality of things, and some of it is obvious in normal human morality, the killing and stealing and lying. It makes a lot of sense, and you can make a very strong secular argument for that. And these things tend to be pretty universal in moral different societies and these sorts of things. Some of God's absolute morality is cruel, harmful, and inhumane. Much of it is outdated and has been replaced by better secular morals. So we've gotten rid of slavery, for example. Some of it is downright silly, especially by today's standards. And there's obvious holes. What does it say about child molestation? What does it say about lying for the advancements of one's religious beliefs? What does it say about same-sex marriage? Nothing. And in some of it, Christians, some of God's absolute morality, Christians run away from, like an eye for an eye, because Christians don't want to necessarily be the victim of their own morality. They want to inflict it on others. So worse, we've got this absolute morality, and a lot of Christians don't even really know it very well. Most Christians can't even list the Ten Commandments. You would think that if God was important to them and they wanted to be following God, they would know those Ten Commandments. And a recent Pew Forum study in 2010 showed that atheists and agnostics know more about religion than most believers, which I find kind of amusing. And if God created humans and people can pray and supposedly talk to God and these sorts of things, and they're desperate to follow his rules to get to heaven, you would think there would be a lot more consistency in the behavior and understanding of God's absolute morality among Christians, but you just don't see it. So I've talked about the failure of prayer earlier, and it's the same sort of idea. And believers only rarely take a skeptical look at their holy book and honestly examine its flaws, and when they do, they often become atheists, and we welcome those folks. So how is God's absolute morality used? Well, enter the spin zone. Instead of admitting that God's absolute morality is a load of crap, Christian leaders play up the good stuff, ignore the silly stuff, rationalize the horrible stuff, and patch over holes with vaguely related passages only if pressed. The gullible believers take the attitude, well, who am I to second guess a supreme being? What do I know? Or they might take the attitude, since I'm a true believer, I'm forgiven, and it doesn't matter that much. So Christian leaders can take the attitude, I can spin this for my own advantage and take advantage of these folks who don't care and don't pay that much attention. And you can see examples of like this. I picked 3 quotes from Pat Robertson just for entertainment. I wish Jeff D were here because he does a pretty good Pat Robertson imitation. But you can hear this sort of attitude everywhere. So Pat Robertson said after the 9/11, I really believe the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians who are actively trying to make that an alternative lifestyle, the ACLU, the People for the American Way, all of them who have tried to secularize America, I point the finger in your face and say, you helped make this happen. So he's blaming people for offending God, and God is doing something else. Here's another one from him. I would warn Orlando that you're right in the way of some serious hurricanes, and I don't think I'd be waving those flags in God's face if I were you. This is not a message of hate. This is a message of redemption. But a condition like this will bring about the destruction of your nation. I'll bring out the terrorist bombs, and it'll bring out the terrorist bombs, and it'll bring out the earthquakes, tornadoes, and possibly a meteor. So this is Pat Robertson talking about Gay Day at Disney in Orlando. Another one, I'd like to say to the good citizens of Dover, if there's a disaster in your area, don't turn to God. You just rejected him from your city. And don't wonder why he hasn't helped you when problems begin or if they begin. I'm not saying that they will, but if they do, just remember that you voted God out of your city. And if that's the case, don't ask for his help because he might not be there. So this is on the Dover monkey trial, you can call it that. So the conclusion is God's absolute morality is a dated human invention, and it's used by demagogues to manipulate the gullible. They want to use it to inflict their will on others, but they don't want to necessarily be subject to it themselves. And it's just a great excuse, I think, for someone to be a thug. And we've seen this with Rick Perry and the Texas Women's Health Program. It's a case where he wants to inflict God's will on somebody else, but anyway, not be subject to it himself. And most Christians are too lazy to either understand it or take the time to decide for themselves whether it makes any sense. And ultimately, I think it's a little more than a con game, and I call it a failure. So,
All right.
all right.
So we're going to take calls here in just a second because this is a live call-in show. As a reminder, after the show's over, some of us get together for dinner at Threadgill's, 301 West Riverside Drive. They'll put the number up right there. There it is. They're fast, lightning fast. I cannot fake out the control room. Actually, I probably could. Mm-hmm. I might try that one of these. Maybe April Fools, I'll start to announce one thing and just swap, and Shelly will come in here and kill me. But all right, so let's start with Eric in Sacramento. How you doing?
Hey, you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, Eric.
Can you hear us?
I really didn't know, Don, that you would actually do a show on morality. You know, kind of neat.
Well, it's rare we actually get callers on our topic, so this is awesome.
I'd like to thank y'all for what you're doing, because I meet a lot of Christians who do not know about the religion, and you know they're just plain dumb as a stump. I think really atheists really need to challenge Christians to really get us to evaluate our beliefs and to study an apologetics.
I agree, because that's the easiest way to get out.
I disagree.
Okay.
So I basically wanted to talk about the moral argument. I think it's really logical. Premise one is if objective morals exist, God exists. Premise two is objective morals do exist, and it logically follows that the conclusion is that God exists.
I think I agree with both of your premises.
No,
But go ahead.
You mean you think you disagree with both?
Disagree.
Yeah, you said agree.
I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. I disagree with both.
So, the version of the moral argument that you're presenting, no offense, but it's the worst one. Because if you begin with the premise, your first premise was if objective morals exist, God exists. Well, okay, I'll reject that premise. Now we're done. See the problem there? You need to actually demonstrate the truth of the premise. Because what you've got there is this argument that says, if objective morals exist, God exists. Objective morals exist, therefore God exists. I mean, it's a nothing argument. It's not even. If you dig in further into the moral arguments and the reason why people make them, there are attempts to justify that first premise, but they're flawed. And by the way, it depends. There's a lot of playing with language, whether or not what you mean by objective moral values is the same thing that somebody else might mean by objective moral values. So I'm not quite sure what it is that you think exists or is true that necessitates a God.
Okay. I have a reason for believing premise one. Morality is immaterial. You can't find morality in like any type of atom. Being that it's material,
What do you think morality is?
well, it's what God is nature. God's nature is good, and it's man's follow that which is one.
Okay, I don't recognize that as morality.
Okay, but that's what I'm attempting to prove.
Well, see, if you start with morality is God's nature, then you are creating a circular argument by default because you're injecting the very thing you're trying to prove into the very first premise.
I can see how you're saying that, but because the conclusion is that God exists.
Yes, and if you begin with morality is God's, is tied to God, you've injected what you're trying to prove at the very beginning. When I asked you what morality is, you said that it was it's what God wants or what God thinks, something like that.
Well, yeah, that's the nature of a deductive argument.
Wow. So I asked you for a definition of morality. What is morality? What do you mean when you say morality?
What? Okay, God's nature is good.
I don't care about God's nature. I don't know how you know that God's nature is good. I don't see that it's relevant. What I asked for was a definition of morality.
It's what God's commands are from his nature.
Then I reject your definition of morality. I don't see that that is a definition that is of any use, and I don't think that it's an accurate definition of morality. I mean, I would accept when somebody says, hey, what's morality? Well, morality is the system by which we evaluate the consequences of actions to determine whether or not we should consider them good actions or bad or right or wrong or anything along those lines would be a good definition of morality. But if you're going to begin with morality is God's nature, we're done.
And keep in mind here that you're calling an atheist show, and atheists kind of by definition don't believe in God. So you're kind of hanging this on something that we don't believe in, and we haven't yet to see any real strong evidence for. So it's almost kind of going nowhere from the very beginning.
I'll assume your definition of morality, Matt. How about that?
You'll assume my definition of morality.
Yes.
Okay.
So morality is immaterial. You can't, and it's a thought. You can't have a thought without a mind. So obviously there must be an objective, immaterial mind that produces this objective, immaterial morality.
Wrong. See, if I can evaluate, for example, the consequences of an action with respect to any value, even an arbitrary one, to determine whether or not it's consistent with that value. So why do we have the value, or why do we have certain values and not others? And these things, they don't exist. The evaluations, they don't exist as things. You're right that we are using minds to conceive, but we're evaluating real things. We're physical beings in a physical universe, and so my actions have consequences to myself and to other people, and I can evaluate those consequences with respect to well-being, which is what morality is really about, well-being.
And I would say too that our morality is based in human nature, which is something, although maybe not tangible, it's something real. We all share a certain evolutionary history. We all share a lot of commonalities, like we don't want to be harmed, we don't want to be hurt, we don't want to be killed, these sorts of things.
And I won't go down that path because
you won't?
Because from a purely philosophical standpoint, I'm not going to appeal to our past. I will say that as physical beings, there are truths about our interactions.
Well, I bring that out because I can tell you where it comes from. I can tell you where our morality comes from. It doesn't necessarily come from some magic being, right? It comes because humans are working this out based on our understanding of ourselves, and we're social animals, and we have to figure out how to get along, and that's where it comes from.
Now here's
But morality, if it's about anything, it's about well-being, and it's not necessarily even tied to humans.
Yeah, here's the problem I find with that. If morality is based off of us, humans, it's subjective.
No, it's not subjective in the sense that it's not contingent upon one mind. If it's about humanity, which I don't agree that it is, I think it's broader than that, and you can talk about it in broader terms, but that doesn't make it the evaluation subjective in the same sense that, take it, for example, the game of chess. It has rules. Those rules were arbitrary. They could have been invented by an individual or by a committee, or they could have been progressively, have evolved over periods of time playing it. But whatever the rules are, the evaluation of any move with respect to the rules is itself objective. You have rules, moral values, and you have an action, moving a pawn. And if you move a pawn in a way that violates these rules, or that violates, in a simpler sense, the strategy of the goal of winning the game or not losing the game, then that is an objectively bad move. It is not subjective in the sense that it's not contingent upon any mind. It is an evaluation of the consequences with respect to the values.
Okay, but that works if everyone plays math according to the rules of chess. But you see, when you're talking about the well-being,
yes, if somebody's not playing by the rules of chess, okay, that's their prerogative. But when we're talking about chess, we can evaluate it objectively. The same thing's true for morality. If somebody doesn't agree that morality is about well-being, then they're talking about something different, just like you were at the beginning. You think that morality is about God's nature. Well, I don't. So obviously we're talking about two different things. But when we get to the point where we're talking about the same thing, then it's no longer subjective.
What objective reason, though, can you give for caring about the well-being of others? That's the problem I have with secular morality.
Well, this is way kind of big to do on the show, but I've spent years doing a talk on the superiority of secular morality because, first of all, secular moral systems are superior, period. And it's because they are the only moral systems. Christianity does not offer a moral system. It offers moral pronouncements. I mean, you can think all day that morality is about God's nature, but now you're just stuck because if your morals come from God's nature, how is it that you've determined what God's nature actually is?
Revelation.
Revelation doesn't do anybody any good. Your revelation may be different from somebody else's revelation. This is the problem. When religious individuals try to attack secular morality, there is not a single objection that they levy at secular morality that is actually real and that is resolved by their own system. Because claiming that you have the insight to what God wants is no different from me claiming that I have the insight into what morality truly is. We're at an impasse. You've raised an issue that your system, which isn't a system at all, does not solve.
Okay, I'm going to have to think about that one because I know it kind of seems like a little problem of interpretation, but I want to ask you, what objective reason do we have for caring about the well-being?
What objective reason do we have for caring about well-being? That's basically what you're asking is why be moral? I'm talking about what morality is, and you're asking why be moral?
Well, yeah, because if morality is just subjective, we can do whatever we want.
Well, I've already said that, first of all, it's not subjective. That if we're going to talk about morality, and morality is well-being, then well-being is actually related to physical facts about who we are and what we do. My actions have certain consequences. Now, why should I care about that? Well, because as Don pointed out, I live in a universe where I don't live alone. It is in my best interest, well-being. I mean, it's kind of like you're addressing the issue of well-being, which is what morality is doing, is in our best interest. Now, there are some people who aren't going to be convinced of that, and that's just too bad. But now the question, as I pointed out, has moved from what morality is to why should one be moral. And the reason one should be moral is because it's in their best interest by definition. That's the reason that we talk about morality as an assessment of well-being. It's in your best interest.
Well, I think that's the very definition of subjective.
I'm sorry?
I think that's the very definition of subjective. It's just subject to the humans. If they don't care about, the whole society doesn't care about, well, and it seems like the morality has
Look, let me use this example. I'll spin off of one of Sam Harris's analogies. Health is about your physical well-being, and we can talk about what is and isn't healthy, and those are objective facts. What is and isn't healthy for us, those are objective facts. They're not subjective. It's not, and it may be slightly different. There may be scenarios where, for example, Don might be horribly allergic to something that doesn't affect me at all, so it would be unhealthy for him and healthy for me. But we're talking about, in general, broad terms, what is physically healthy for human beings is the subject of health. Now, what you're asking is, why should I care about being healthy? I mean, that's really what you're asking. Why should anybody care about being healthy? And my answer is the same, because it's in their best interest. There's no obligation for anybody to care about being healthy, and there's no obligation for anybody to care about being moral.
But there are many societies that have different morals.
Well, there are many societies that have different opinions about what is and isn't moral.
That's subjective.
No. Because it's just the same as if there's a society that thinks drinking battery acid is healthy, they're wrong. And if there's a society that thinks that enslaving people and cutting off and female genital mutilation is moral, they're wrong. They're welcome to have their opinions about it, but they're wrong.
So your opinion is objective, but their opinion is subjective.
No, I didn't say that my opinion was objective, Eric.
Okay, but when you said if a society says drinking battery acid is wrong,
yes,
and that's their opinion that it's wrong, well, that's your opinion that it's their opinion that it's wrong.
No, it's not my opinion. Do you think drinking battery acid is good for you?
No.
Is that just your opinion, or do you have some actual evidence for that?
Well, God made battery acid.
Oh, you're done. I'm happy to have conversations about morality and deeper conversations about philosophy, but if you're just going to be stupid, if you're just going to spin along, I don't even believe that Eric was real now. Well, God made battery acid. I'm legitimately convinced that Eric was probably someone, perhaps an atheist, who decided, hey, I'm going to go on this whole morality, objective, subjective thing. I think because
he was an honest caller.
When I was a Christian, there's no way I'd have ever said anything as stupid as God made battery acid. I mean, that's just an admission that in the middle of the argument, you have, and by the way, when you call in to talk about how wonderful it is that we challenge Christians to think more and then demonstrate that you think less, that's a problem. Who's next? We have Miles in East Fishkill.
Yes, good day, Matthew and Donald.
Hey.
I have a bit of concern here about the way people are going about using the term atheist. Now, by definition, an atheist is a person who does not hold a belief in God. I'm sure you agree with that.
Sure.
However, it seems that some individuals like yourselves are attempting to take the term to another level entirely. I myself happen to be an atheist because of the fact that I do not hold a belief in a God. I do not, however, hold any hatred for God, nor do I harbor any ill will towards religion or religious people.
Why don't you harbor any ill will toward religion? I mean, if you don't believe in God, then clearly you would believe that religions are out there teaching things that you don't think are true. So surely you're not supporting the teaching of untruths.
I neither support it nor do I not support it.
Well, I'm sorry, but you don't get to have it both ways.
It is completely irrelevant to me, sir. I don't have any care for it at all.
I don't. Well, a
lot of the members.
Your apathy is one thing, but there's not two ways between. Okay, do you think that religion is a good thing?
Well, it depends. There is a lot of things that religion does that are good. A lot of things they do that are bad, but there's many things they do that are good. You can't simply say, is it good or is it bad? It also depends on the religion, I believe.
Sure. Well, I think you're confused on a couple of things, in that it's people who are doing good things. It's, yes, religions can do good things. I'm talking about the religious claims, the claims that you reject.
Well, saying that it's people who are doing good things, it's also people that are doing the bad things, is it not?
Yes, it is.
So then, what my concern is, somebody who uses the term atheist as a person who hates religion or
That's
hates
not what
God,
we're
or-
saying. That we're not saying that the term atheist means someone who hates religion.
Oh, I know
We've
that's
not
not what you're saying, but you are going under that term.
No.
Well, we have a lot of different viewpoints. In fact, we I think try very hard to have different hosts and co-hosts on the show to give different viewpoints, because I think that's part of the strength here is we have different opinions and things. I happen to be a very strong anti-theist, where I think a lot of religious doctrine and religion has done a lot of harm, and I'm speaking out against that. And this is a great forum for me to do that.
See,
So I may be one of the bad boys as far as what you're concerned, but I defend my position, and we can talk about various things. There's the issue of whether it's factual or not is one thing, but there's also the issue of whether it's important or not, and I feel strongly it is.
But you have this concern about the way we're using the term atheist, and I'm here to clarify that I'm fine with atheist means you do not believe in the existence of a God. When I say, for example, I despise religion just generally. Some religions I despise more than others because I think they're more harmful. But when I point out that perhaps other atheists should, in my opinion, be similarly angered and about religion. If you're an atheist and you're not, and you don't hate religion, I'm not going to say you're a bad atheist. I just think you're a bad human being.
But yes, but the term atheist only means a person that does not believe in God.
Yes.
And that's,
so
that's,
what?
That's
I just
all.
said that.
Yeah.
Well, yes. What I totally agree with what you just said. Donald mentioned anti-theism, and I believe that what you are is more anti-theists than
Yeah.
atheists.
Well,
That might be true.
the terms are not mutually exclusive. I'm both. What's your point?
Well, the point is that the title of this show is the atheist experience, not the anti-theist experience.
Okay. So what?
So, well, what really got me thinking about this was last week, Matt, you were hosting with Jeffrey, and a caller called in, a young lady who had ambitions for running for public office.
Yes.
And she was concerned that if she came out with being an atheist, it would hurt her chances
Yes.
of getting to the position, because people would immediately think that she was a person who wanted to remove God from their money and do away with their holidays and whatnot. And do you not think that...
I don't think that's what she thought, no.
Well, then what other reason would she have for fearing to come out with her atheism rather than having backlash from...
you went to specifics about God and money and other stuff, and I'm saying that I'm not convinced that those were her concerns. Her concerns were the negative response. And
you're absolutely right. She never did use those terms.
And
I
so
just assumed she had similar fears, that's what people would think was her view.
no,
because
her concern is that there's a negative perception of atheists and atheism.
Exactly. And do you think that you are helping to spread that concern about negative atheists? Because
we're speaking out against the harm of religion?
No, because what you seem to me are more of an anti-theism point of view than an atheist point of view.
So what?
So
listen, Miles.
Yes, sir.
I did not create or expand the negative image of atheists. This is something that's coming from the pulpit and from years and years of living in a Christian and theistic dominated society where the people who do not believe are vilified and distrusted.
Not to mention Red Scare propaganda.
I mean, in the United States, we changed the motto in the 50s to be more anti-atheist because of the godless communists in Russia. This is a systemic problem that is built on a lot of misinformation about who atheists are. Now, atheists are a lot of things, and that includes anti-theists, but atheists are not the boogeymen that they have been portrayed to be. And her concern was, have we reached a point, or do you think we will reach a point in the near future where I, as an open atheist, can successfully run for office? And my answer is yes.
Well, do you not have a concern that perhaps you are doing more to hurt the atheism community than helping?
No.
Well, when I watch your show often, I really do like the show, by the way.
Well, then why would you think that we're doing harm if you like it?
Well, because I'm an atheist, but were I a theist, I do not think I would like the show very
Well,
much.
I don't give a rat's ass what they like.
Exactly, but the people who are watching the show now hear you say that, and they're attributing that to folks like myself who don't share that opinion.
Well, that's their problem.
But it is also my problem. Do you not agree?
Then maybe you should get out and do something about it.
Your voice is welcome too.
We're not.
Atheism is a big tent, and
I'd like to know what exactly it is that we're doing, that you think we're doing wrong, that is negative.
Well, if I come out and tell a person that I'm an atheist, they might immediately contribute my views to your views or other people who are in the spotlight.
That's not my problem. I wanted to know what it is.
It is my problem.
Fine. Well, okay, I'm asking you what it is that you think we're doing that concerns you, that we're having a negative impact on the atheist term.
Well, would you agree there is a difference between an atheist and an anti-theist?
sure.
Yes.
Well, anti-theist is more specific, I imagine.
Wouldn't you not consider yourself more anti-theist than atheist?
No.
I'm both.
The
I'm 100%
terms aren't
both.
mutually exclusive. I'm with Don. I'm 100% both.
But it's as if you have taken an extra step beyond just simply atheism.
No, well, yeah, in addition to being an atheist, in addition to not believing in a God, I've decided that has some consequences and that I have to live in a world, and so, yeah.
Okay, well, that's pretty much all I wanted to say.
Okay. Well,
I still want to know what it is that we're doing wrong.
I was just concerned about coming off as atheisms when, in my opinion, you are a bit more than atheisms, and I was wondering if you can come up with a term which encompasses it all rather than just saying atheism.
No, you can't be more than atheist.
Well, I disagree with you because I am an atheist.
There's two, Miles, stop. There's two positions, theism, atheism, that's it.
But I am not an anti-theist.
I don't care. Congratulations.
Yes, but you are an anti-theist.
Yes.
And an atheist.
You know what else I am? I'm a liberal Democrat. I have a friend here who's not.
Yes.
So what? If on the subject of talking about God and God's existence, we are both atheists. When it comes to religion, I am opposed to religion and you're not. That's not my problem. And me talking about it on an atheist show doesn't mean that I'm doing anything negative with regard to atheism.
But I feel it can be negative.
I feel that you're the one that's negative. You clearly don't care enough to do things in opposition to real harm.
But people who watch the show, they see the title Atheist Experience.
Yes.
And will immediately attribute your views to the views of an atheist.
Well, then they're idiots. Because the one thing that we point out, and that you're free to point out, and that anybody else is free to point out, is that atheism, it only addresses the existence of God. Everything else is extra.
Yes, exactly, but you don't make that clear on this show.
Wow. How many shows have you seen?
No, we don't have Raelians on the show. We don't have Buddhists on the show.
I got an hour-long show, and I'm not going to spend 10 minutes of it every week saying that half of what we talk about...
Well, you don't need to spend 10 minutes. Can you not?
I tell you what, Miles, why don't you write me the sort of disclaimer that you think should be read on the air so that we're clear and we're not confusing people?
Well, I feel there are people who watch the show, theists, for example, who are confused by the term
feel,
atheist.
Miles,
they may not know as much as... Yes.
Do you have any evidence for this, or is this just what you feel?
Yes, I am an atheist, and this was made clear to me, sir.
Miles, you just said you feel that there are theists out there who are confused by this.
Well, if an atheist picks it up, I am sure a theist will pick it up immediately. Immediately.
Do you think that when there's a a Christian TV show or a Christian radio show that they speak for all of Christianity, and that you're not entertaining the Catholic position or the Anabaptist.
Definitely. If you were to see someone on a Christian television show say something, you would not jump on that immediately?
I don't jump on it as representative of every Christian. Do you?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. Goodbye. That was easy. All right, Joseph in Colorado Springs, how are you?
Hello?
Thanks for waiting.
No problem. Hey, I'm a theist. Actually, I just wanted to say I've watched your show a couple times, and I don't think that you speak for every atheist.
We can't.
Yeah, I know. I don't speak for every Christian. I had a question. I had that last week. I was talking about morality with an atheist or an agnostic or something. He didn't wear a sign, but he said that I couldn't base my morality on the Bible. And he brought up how there's stuff in the Old Testament that I don't follow anymore, but that the Ten Commandments are in the Old Testament. And I said, well, I brought up to him about the Sermon on the Mount and the fact that, when Jesus came, he started a new law. And what he brought up was, he said something about 4 tassels on the corners of a gun or something like that. I vaguely remember, I actually looked that up online, and he's right, that is in Leviticus. I asked in the Old Testament, nobody does that anymore. So he said, well, Jesus never said to stop wearing 4 tassels, and he never said stop doing this and stop doing that. And because of that I couldn't just say that the Old Testament didn't count anymore, and he said I was cherry picking.
Well, I think Christians want to have their cake and eat it too. There is this quote in the New Testament that Jesus says, "I've not come to change the law; I've come to fulfill it."
I know, and I've seen that. Then I talked to my pastor about it earlier today, and basically what he said is, no, that's wrong, and I should read the Bible. And I didn't seem very helpful. And
I can look up the quote for you if you'd like, and you can read it.
Okay, so this comes up a lot. What your pastor probably meant is that it's his interpretation that Jesus was coming to fulfill the sacrificial laws, the other 603 of the 613 commandments, but that the 10 commandments remain because Jesus himself referenced keeping those commandments, but actually he just picked and chose out of the list of 10, so he doesn't actually cite all 10. But none of that really matters to me, because if you look at it in a broader context, first of all, it's one thing to say, well, there's bad stuff in the Old Testament. Well, why is that? I mean, was God just an evil person before and he got better?
What do you mean by that?
Sorry?
You said, like, there's bad stuff in the Old Testament, and did God used to be a bad person? What do you mean by that?
Well, once upon a time, the Old Testament's all there was, right? And it was God's instructions for people.
Right.
And then now we have, in Christianity, we have the New Testament, and you're looking back on it and saying, yeah, there's some stuff in the Old Testament that is not good, So what happened?
So you're saying that God made some laws and then later he changed them, and why?
I'm not saying that. That's what the Bible's saying.
Well, but that's what you're getting at, though.
Yeah, my thing is, you've got a God, and by the way, there's tons of immoral stuff in the New Testament, including in the Sermon on the Mount and et cetera. But so you have a God who sets out his moral commandments for people, and supposedly he's moral and just and wise and all-knowing, or maybe at least not all-knowing. Maybe he's just knows way more than us. So why on earth could he ever be stupid enough to set forth laws that endorse and encourage slavery, or encourage people to kill witches, or have things about wearing mixed fabrics, and all of these things that we shun and say, no, that stuff doesn't matter? Why if God was perfect, why was there ever any need for a 2.0, and why is the 2.0 not really better than the 1.0?
And why does it need religious leaders to spin it?
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense. And you said something about there being slavery in the New Testament.
Yeah.
Or did you actually say in the Sermon on the Mount?
Sorry, what?
Did you say there was mention of slavery in the Sermon on the Mount?
No.
No, I don't believe so.
But in the New Testament?
Yes.
I need to read some more.
Yeah, the New Testament specifically instructs slaves to obey their masters, even the cruel masters. It doesn't say, you know, if you got slavery wrong, you would think that any decent God coming out with a new version would say,
Oops.
oh, yeah, that stuff that they wrote about slavery back then, they kind of misunderstood, or maybe I was wrong, or whatever, but thou shalt not own another human being as property. But slavery isn't ever repealed in the New Testament. It's not changed, it's not altered, and the instruction becomes slaves obey your masters, even the cruel ones. Well, it seems to me that the only moral thing you could ever tell a slave is do your absolute best to escape and take everybody with you. Do not obey and do not subject yourself to cruel masters. You have a duty and an obligation to overthrow your cruel masters. That's moral.
So this is secular morality improving on.
That's in the New Testament?
Yes.
See, this is why I called you guys, because if I ask other Christians and they're just going to tell me the same stuff over and over again, and if I'm going to believe in God, I want to know that I can defend my belief, like it says in
Good for you.
John.
That's awesome.
That's how I got here.
How you got where?
That's how I
In
got
this
to be
seat.
the president of the atheist community of Austin. I was studying with the intent of being a minister. I wanted to be able to defend my beliefs. I wanted to be able to demonstrate what seemed obvious and true to me, and that was that a God existed, and that the Christian God in particular was the correct one, and that my beliefs about Christianity were not just true; they were rationally justifiable and they were moral. And I found out that I was wrong on all counts.
So hats off to you for going through that process. I think that's very admirable.
Well, I mean, you can't be right. You never get to being right just by listening to the people that agree with you.
That's
Awesome.
unless they're right.
But you don't know if they're right until...
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be right for the right reasons.
If you want to be
Very
rationally
good.
justified, you
I
need to
really
know that
appreciate-
they're right.
Is there somewhere that I can look up any, like, you guys...
Yeah, sure.
information?
Yeah, I'd start at wiki.ironchariots.org, and there you can actually read my verse-by-verse deconstruction of the Sermon on the Mount, but also Skeptic's Annotated Bible, which I think is coming out with like a print version and stuff very soon. Skeptic's-Annotatedbible.com. You can actually click a thing like, what does the Bible say about, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff, and you could click slavery, and you could take you right to the verses in the Old and New Testament about it.
Wow, okay, so that's wiki at Iron Chariots?
It's www.ironchariots.org, but you could just do wiki.ironchariots.org. It's a counter-apologetics wiki that Russell and I started years ago.
Okay. I'm not saying I'm going to change my mind just because I read some stuff you guys wrote on the internet, but
Yeah.
thank you for you. I'll tell you this: you definitely put together a better argument than my pastor did, and that doesn't mean that you're right and he's wrong, but at least you're willing to talk about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm definitely changing churches. 'Cause
Yeah,
if you
we
just
invite
don't
questions.
Read the Bible some more. That's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, it's I encourage that. If you're not happy with the response that you're getting in the church that you're in, by all means, look for other churches and go around until you get an answer that you find satisfactory from one of them. And then
Well, I'll just read the Bible. I mean, people can be wrong or whatever, but the Bible isn't changing anytime soon. So, but I really
nice if
appreciate
it did.
your time, and I appreciate your time and taking it through. I know it's not your job to be a Bible scholar when my pastor isn't, but I appreciate you at least kind of talking me through my questions because.
Sure. Well, we welcome those sorts of questions.
Thanks, Joseph.
Thank you, Joseph, and good luck to you.
Yeah, have a good rest of your show. I'll be watching.
All right,
Thanks.
take care.
And as a reminder, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to all of us. We get more email than we can possibly
Respond
hope to
to,
answer, so
unfortunately.
I can't guarantee any sort of responses, but we do try to read it all and
Yeah,
respond.
that last caller warmed my heart.
I know.
That was nice.
And going back and to the caller before that, start your own show. Please. I mean, by all means, this doesn't need to be, nor should it be, the only atheist show, the only atheist voice.
Oh yeah, the more viewpoints, the more ways of saying this is a good thing.
There are plenty of people. This is one of the first calls where somebody's talked about, do you think you're contributing to misinformation about atheists? No, I think we spend quite a lot of time actually correcting misinformation, and I think we've been pretty clear that we're not speaking for everybody.
Yeah, and we have a particular, mission statement as part of our group, and we're kind of in line with that. And you can look that up on the internet.
Yeah. The only thing that makes you a terrible atheist is if you believe in God. Other than that, as long as you don't believe in God, you're a great atheist. But being an atheist, I mean, it's not like something that is grand and applause-worthy and serves as a confirmation that you're a rational individual. I'm actually at the American Atheist Convention. I'm going to talk about skepticism and atheism, and I'm of the view that skepticism, the proper application of skepticism to religious claims, necessarily results in atheism. Now, that doesn't mean that every skeptic ends up an atheist. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'll clarify all that when I talk about it. But I'm much more. My skepticism is far more important to me than my atheism. My atheism is a conclusion that I've reached on the issue of God, or actually maybe even a lack of conclusion, some might say.
The skepticism has legs. It takes you other places, right?
As soon as there's evidence for the existence of God, I'm done being an atheist, but I'm still going to be a skeptic, and I'm probably still going to be opposed to religion, because even the existence of God does not excuse the problems of religion pretending to have answers and influencing people's lives in ways
when they're screwing up so regularly.
It really isn't that hard.
So hugely.
So yeah, but hey, by all means, start another atheist show. We need more. Timothy in Richmond, how are you?
Hey Matt, hey Don, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, listen. Well, first of all, I love your show, and I'm a big fan. I've been watching it for several years. I actually saw a clip on YouTube of I think it was you and Jeff D.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lots of clips. Yep. Thousands.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how many years I've been doing this. Is it 8 now? I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, we're coming up on year 8 or something. But anyway, what'd you have for us?
Yeah. I've been a skeptic person about religions for quite a few years now, and but I'm still kind of like caught up in the world of religion. I mean, going to church and stuff. And, it's so powerful. I think because I've been going to church all my life. I've been raised in going to church, the same church all my life.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my mother, is very devout Christian, and almost everybody I know is devout Christian.
So you're torn with all these expectations versus being true to yourself, right?
I'm sorry, say it again?
You're torn with all these expectations from your family, and between that and being true to yourself.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I know who I am, but I don't know how. Basically, what I'm trying to point out is I don't know how to exactly come out as who I am and still be accepted by my mother, my family, my my friends, and I don't know if I have any more friends left. Because even people that I don't know, I mean, even people that I know that at school and stuff, some of them, if they find out that I'm an atheist, they might not want to hang with me no more, or might not like me no more. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to ask is, how can I reveal who I am?
So
and,
yeah, we've dealt with this quite a lot, and the short answer is I don't know, because I don't know your situation. It may be the case that it's not in your best interest to come out. It's a decision that you have to make. and you have to be willing to face all the potential consequences, which could include losing and breaking a bunch of relationships. Basically, you might find yourself relatively alone, and if you're not comfortable with that as a prospect, then it's probably not a good thing to come out yet, and just kind of wait until the world is a safer place for it. On the other hand, if you do decide to come out, there's lots of different ways, and my thinking now is to not make any kind of big deal out of it. Not Mom, sit down, I have to tell you something, that kind of big buildup. It's one of those things where it can be helpful for them to understand, without ever using the A word, that you just don't believe this stuff anymore. You're having difficulties believing the things that you used to believe, and having conversations along those lines that can eventually lead to just saying, yeah, you know what, call me an atheist, call me whatever. I don't believe that stuff anymore. It's just not who I am. One of the things that I worked out with my parents when they were kind of devastated by this was they believe that God wants me to know He exists, and they believe that God answers prayer and that everything happens according to God's plan. And so by telling them, you just keep praying that God will reveal this to me, they know me well enough to know that if God decides to reveal Himself, I'm not going to deny it. And that takes the burden off their shoulders and put it on God. Don's probably got more on.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to something you said, that you're going to lose your friends. You may lose some of your friends, but maybe those folks aren't so much your friends.
I've been thinking that. Yeah.
And you're going to gain some friends, and there will be a bit of a burden lifted, in the sense that you won't necessarily have to pass or play an act or these sorts of things. But I agree with Matt. You have to weigh your options and your own decision. And maybe the easiest thing is to move to a city or town or somewhere where being an atheist is a little easier, and start a new life there.
But on that note, I apologize. They're putting up the credits. I got to let you go. Thanks for calling. Thanks everybody for showing up. Thanks, Don, for telling us why God's absolute morality is a scam. And Russell will be sitting in next week. I got the weekend off. But we'll see you at the American Atheist Convention and around town.
I think we're clear.
Hey, laddie.
Yes, sir. Who am I speaking to?
This is Matt and Don.
Hey, Matt and Don, I'm so glad to reach you. It's awfully hard. You guys are more difficult to reach than the White House.
Nah.
I don't believe it.
Well, not more difficult than the
things.
president.
We don't believe a lot of things, do we?